You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Athan Hristodulu.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Athan Hristodulu. It's Monday, February 21st, 2022, and today we are continuing on with our divisional power rankings videos as we do the AFC East, going from 4th to 1st in the division. So make sure you take a seat, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's talk some divisional power rankings. So the AFC East, an interesting division to say the least. We have seen a lot of turnover over the last few years within this division. Of course, with Brady leaving, with now the Bills having the emergence of Josh Allen and becoming a playoff contender. The Dolphins team, who have been slowly emerging with Brian Flores and then having pretty much the rug pulled out from underneath them. And then the Jets, of course, who after about 20, 30 years now, finding the heir apparent to Joe Namath in Zach Wilson. There is a lot to be intrigued about with this division, and I think, we've already seen a fair amount of change with it and a new leader emerge from the group, but now on top of that, with even more change going on and more questions to answer, this is a division that has so much potential to look vastly different, even in the next like 2 or 3 years as well. It's definitely one of the more fun ones to follow. Now, like we always do, we will start from the bottom team and work our way up. And starting at number 4, we are discussing the Miami Dolphins. Yes, the 9-8 Miami Dolphins, who have just missed the playoffs the last couple of years, and again have a new head coach after having Brian Flores removed from the team. Mike McDaniel is now taking over from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, why do I have them at number 4 and not number 3, considering they were 9-8 and the Jets were 4-13? Well, there's again, a lot of turnover just in this entire division, obviously, but with this team, I don't really understand the whole firing of Brian Flores and how that ended up happening the way it did, whether it was an internal disagreement on things and obviously his accusations of the team trying to tank when he was trying to win. It was very interesting watching the Dolphins, especially this past season when they started with the big losing streak and then went on that massive run of wins. There's more questions, I feel, than answers with this team at this very moment. Pretty solid roster. I'm very curious to see what happens with Tua as the quarterback going forward. There was all the rumors about the Dolphins being in on Deshaun Watson and ultimately it boiling down to just, his legal issues not being figured out before the trade deadline this past season. So now I have the question of, is Deshaun Watson going to be the guy that they pursue now during this offseason? Is that going to continue to be an issue for the team until all of that gets resolved? Who really knows? What I do know is that there are some really big positives for the team, though. But, having questions at the quarterback and now an unproven coach in Mike McDaniel, I just feel that there's a lot of turnover for this offseason, and I do expect them to take a bit of a step back. That's not me doubting Mike McDaniel's opinion or even some of the players on this roster, but just the amount of changes that they're dealing with is a lot to overcome in 1 year. With free agents in mind, they also have Mike Gesicki, who's on the free agency market, Emmanuel Ogbah, Landon Roberts, Nick Needham, Justin Coleman, Albert Wilson, the wide receiver, tight end Durham Smith, who, that might be a name that doesn't matter to, or isn't really known by a lot of people, but was a guy who played a fair amount for the Dolphins, made some catches. He had I believe it was 34 catches, 300 some odd yards, a couple of touchdowns. The guy definitely played a handful, a good depth guy for the team, but with those free agents in mind, they do have $63.8 million to play with in the cap. So while I am slightly worried about them and just the amount of turnover that we're seeing with the team right now, there's a strong potential that they can bring back some of those core pieces that are going to be potentially leaving the team and be able to make some big signings as well and maybe fill some holes. But right now, with questions at the quarterback, right, and then you have obviously an unproven Mike McDaniel, I just think that the Dolphins, who I have sitting at number 4, take a slight seat behind the New York Jets, who I have sitting at number 3. Yes, the Jets, the 4-13 Jets. They have a vault of high picks going into this offseason for the draft. They have a ton of cap space to go with it as well. The Jets have a real strong shot at making a massive leap this offseason. I'm a big fan of Robert Saleh, stability at the coaching position for the first time for the Jets in quite a while. So I'm excited to see them, take in year number 2 with Robert Saleh. And of course, Zach Wilson, a guy that I think gets more criticism because of the fact that he's in New York than anything else. I think that when you're, especially the quarterback that is supposed to be taking over for Joe Namath now, because who has truly been their quarterback ever since him, aside from maybe that brief stint with Mark Sanchez being the dude for a little bit there. And even then, that was more the coaching and defense than anything else. But he faces a lot of criticism as the guy in New York here. I think he's really talented. I think he made some pretty big strides late in the season as well. There was obviously that one point where everyone thought, oh, it's Mike White time. He's taking over the Jets here. And I was definitely hopped on that train because I was interested to see what happened there. But ultimately, it boiled down to Zach Wilson truly being the number 2, not the number 2 pick, proving why he was the number 2 pick and why he is the guy for the New York Jets. So, you have coaching stability. You have their presumed QB1 going forward. So much potential in bringing in pieces through the draft here with such high picks. I expect them to make some good choices as well. It feels almost like there is an air of change for the New York Jets brewing right now, and I'm kind of excited about it to see what they do and how they build around Zach Wilson and build a unit out with Robert Saleh there. I think that adding skill talent across the board is definitely going to be one of their number one things that they do going through this offseason. And with $48.2 million in cap space, whether it's through the draft or through free agency, I think that they have a really good shot. And with a head coach like Robert Saleh that players are known to gravitate towards and really like, there is a really good chance the Jets leapfrog the Dolphins here. And their free agent list is fairly short. Not a ton of guys to really be worried about losing, and a fair amount of ease in bringing them back. Right tackle Morgan Moses, wide receiver Jamison Crowder, who is getting a little bit up there in age. Safety Marcus May is somebody they must be bringing back because he is a huge piece of that defense. Wide receiver Braxton Berrios, who emerged for them late in the year. Keelan Cole, who played a fair amount of snaps. And Laurent Duvernay-Tardif did not get to play as much as I'm sure that the Jets were hoping for him to play. I think his first game was in week 11. So that'll be something that, do they bring him back or not? He was fine in pass blocking. The run game was not really big overall throughout the entirety of the Jets season. So, while maybe he wasn't helping open up lanes, I don't really think anyone really was too much over there in New York. So we'll see what they have to do there, but I like the potential of this Jets team. Now, coming in at number 2 for this list, going to be the New England Patriots. I flirted with the idea of putting them at number 1, but ultimately I just think that there is a lack of talent on this Patriots team that the Bills do have that the Patriots don't, and there's more work to be done in New England than kind of the retooling that Buffalo needs. So for the Patriots at number 2, 10-7, they made the playoffs. They definitely need to focus on getting a wide receiver 1. I think that's been something that's talked about more than anything else around the New England media, and just how much I feel like I hear it all the time. And for those of you that don't know, I live in the New England area. All I hear is New England Patriots conversation. And you'd think that this team was 3-14 this past season with the way some people talk about them, and it's hysterical. But they do need to find a wide receiver 1, but also the O-line needs a little bit of adjusting despite how good the O-line was expected to be. I don't think that they played quite up to the expectations at times this year that were set for them. On top of that, the defense is starting to get old. I think Dante Hightower kind of looked like he had his feet in the mud. And then on top of that, Devin McCourty, as great as he's always been, is definitely starting to slow down a little bit. You lost Patrick Chung. And then, of course, with the free agency list, you have J.C. Jackson that's going to be up there. Devin McCourty is also up. Jacoby Myers, Dante Hightower, like I mentioned, Juwan Bentley, Ted Karras. You have guys that are going to be leaving here, and it feels like there might be a little bit of a change of scenery, not so much for the players, but just for this team in general and the players surrounding the organization. So we'll have to see what they end up doing there as far as bringing people back and moving people around. I'm really curious to see if they offer the big money contract I expect J.C. Jackson to command. And on top of that, I'm curious to see who they target to be the number 1 guy for Mac Jones, because I'm really high on Mac Jones. I don't understand the amount of criticism he gets from outside and inside New England, especially inside New England. There's been conversation about him needing to be potentially traded to go all in for another guy, but in my opinion, you landed who ended up having the best rookie season of the entire quarterback class. Like, just run with the guy. New England, in my opinion, has been very spoiled by success, and I think that they just want to win now after the last 20-some-odd years. It takes time to build out a good roster and a good team to really compete, and the fact that the Patriots have competed as quickly as they have, minus last season, and bringing in a new quarterback, they're in a good spot. They also have $8.3 million in cap space. I expect that number to grow a little bit based on some of the fat that they trim from the roster and how they decide to do things this offseason. I like their chances. I like what they're doing. I expect the Patriots to potentially have a better record than they did this year. Even if it's only by one game, they have a good possibility of only improving this year, and I like them at number 2. And that, of course, leads me to number 1, the Buffalo Bills at 11-6, the division leaders. And, quite honestly, this team took some random losses this year. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguar one, them struggling to play the Steelers week number 1. There's a few losses on that game, or that list of games that they played, that don't really make sense to me. And whatever the issues may be, I think I look at the Bills and I think, all right, they just kind of need to reload and go and get back to it again this season. My biggest concern for them is the same concern I had for them last year, in that their running game continues to struggle outside of Josh Allen. I understand that Allen is a versatile quarterback. He's athletic. He can make the big run. Like, the guy's like a moose. Like, he plays like a moose. If you were to give him a nickname at this stage in his career, it was funny listening to people give Patrick Mahomes the Reaper thing. And, while it's a great nickname for Patrick Mahomes, I like the Moose for Josh Allen, especially for a guy that's playing in upstate New York. The guy just is huge. He can run people over. He's an excellent runner. But after that, there was a slight emergence from Devin Singletary in that run game, but not quite what you'd want to complement this Buffalo Bills team. And when you're playing in upstate New York, you need a ground game. You need to be able to run the ball when the weather gets weird and when the weather gets bad. It feels like Buffalo loses these odd games in their own stadium, like when they played the Patriots in Buffalo in that crazy weather game and they didn't end up winning. Those are the games that are supposed to be in their advantage. And while you're playing the Patriots, who also deal with that same similar style of weather, it never really felt like the Bills were in it for that game. And obviously they came back and crushed the Pats the 2 games afterwards that they played. I understand that. The run game needs to be worked on. And I also feel they need to continue working on the D-line and get younger at that position. When you look at their free agents in Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, wrong side of 30 for both of those guys. I think they need to get younger. They already kind of started to do so last offseason. They need to continue to find good pass rush, get younger at the position, bring in some more energy, because it felt like there were points in times during the season, especially late in the year, where they just could not get to the quarterback and really cause any pressure. And when you look at the Chiefs-Bills game from this year in the divisional round, any sort of pressure to slow down Patrick Mahomes, and, they end up potentially coming out the winners of that football game. It took them 13 seconds to drive down the field. Mahomes in that defense, or not that defense, Mahomes in that offense was just killing their defense. And I want to see them build out the defense a little bit more. I want to see them build out the run game a little bit more so that they can really control a football game in a more effective manner and not put themselves in a position to have Patrick Mahomes rip their heart out right at the end of the game. But that's where I stand with the AFC East. Really like the division. Again, this is a really exciting one. There's a lot of turnover going on with this group here. And realistically speaking, do I think that this is exactly how this is going to look come the beginning of the preseason and the early part of next year? Potentially, maybe not, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of variables for this offseason in this division. I'd be curious to see what you guys think in the comment section down below. So you guys let me know what you think about this AFC East. Who do you think's at the top? Who's at the bottom of the division? But I appreciate you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.